Hi, everyone. This is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and today I'm excited to have David Henzel, who's a serial entrepreneur who has bootstrapped several companies. And after a big wake-up call in his personal life, he realized that he needed to change big time, which resulted in selling MaxCDN and launching Managing Happiness. Alongside Managing Happiness, he operates few other startups like LTVplus, Taskdrive, 50 SaaS, and now he's focused on building UpCoach, which is an online coaching program. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you very much for having me, Rohit.
Thank you. You have a very interesting journey because you started really small when you started working on e-commerce business and a lot of other businesses. What was the drive? What made David become an entrepreneur?
So I guess the drive was didn't really fit into the normal system. I went to 14 different schools and I was always struggling. I always had, I was like a trouble student. And then I dropped out of school and I was just kind of like aimless. And then a friend of mine said, hey man, you go with computers. How about we start a business together and help people fix their networks and computers? And I said, yeah, whatever, I have nothing else to do. And this worked out really, really well. And I found, entrepreneurship, being free, being able to do what I want to do and not having somebody that forces me to do things that I don't want to do. And this was like, like the lights went on. And ever since I've been focusing on entrepreneurship.
Right. Very interesting because, like you mentioned, you bounce around across different schools, but do you think schools do not encourage entrepreneurship, or do you think entrepreneurship is a calling only for a few set of people, or do you think entrepreneurship can be taught even in schools?
Oh yeah, I mean, you can definitely learn things about entrepreneurships in schools, and there's like courses for that. But for school, the thing for me was always my mantra is to make decisions out of love and not out of fear. And when I'm doing this, then I'm always in the zone. I'm doing the right things. And in school, I was always acting out of fear because I wasn't interested in these topics that people were presenting me with, and so I had to do that. I was forced to do it. Versus, I love learning. I love learning new stuff. I read a boatload of books all the time, but I want to focus on the stuff that I enjoy. In terms of entrepreneurship, I'm not sure if school is the right place of learning this. I think it's just kind of like start some side hustle, sell something on eBay, do something, build websites, learn some skill. And then, if you figure out a way on how you can provide value, money is a side effect of providing value. So if you figure out how to provide the most value to the largest amount of people, then you'll be the richest person around. So it's all about finding a way of providing value, and then you'll always be able to monetize this. I'm not sure if this is if you're born an entrepreneur, or I guess it has to do with risk tolerance to some degree, and I kind of also like trust in the universe or trust in God that everything will work out, and having the stomach for this uncertainty. I guess is like a thing that makes it easier being an entrepreneur. But I think everybody can do something, even if you just like start something small on the side. You have the security of your job, and you build something, and once it's big enough, you don't have to just jump off the cliff. As I always say, running a startup is like jumping off a cliff and assembling the plane on the way down. It doesn't have to be like this. You can also kind of just like gradually move into this journey.
Right. Interesting. And how did you go about starting MaxCDN, and what was the product all about?
So I had a few businesses in Germany already, and my big dream was always to move to America, because there was like this cool startup scene that did not happen in the early 2000s in Germany. And so I sold my e-commerce business, which gave me the money to get my investor visa to go to the United States. And there I looked around, kind of figuring out what I can do, what kind of opportunities there are. And a friend of mine who just sold his hosting business was about to start. He's starting NetDNA, which was a enterprise-focused CDN. And then he was looking for a partner and an investor, and somebody who can handle product and marketing. This was like a really good fit for me. So we partnered up and launched this. And from MaxCDN was another brand that emerged later. And so, yeah, this is how we started MaxCDN. And MaxCDN was a content delivery network, something that makes, like web hosting, it makes websites load faster. And the thing that we did is we figured out, actually, we started just copying some other player, and we're just like, back then, we're just like in it for the money, thought like, okay, we're just going to build this thing. We're going to make it a little cheaper and everybody will come, which did not happen, especially when you do build something in the enterprise space. There's a great book called Crossing the Chasm, where you first have to kind of, the early adopters will go with you, but the big players, the enterprise customers, they usually just buy what their peers buy. There's a saying like, you'll never get fired for choosing IBM. So, they'll just like buy what's safe for them. Like somebody in a smaller startup or the founder of a business will even go with a unknown player and take this gamble because it could be much better for the business. But, CTO of a big company doesn't want to lose his job. So she just goes down the safe route. And so you have to kind of figure out how you make this cross this chasm, in terms of figuring this out. So this was like a big hurdle. And then with MaxCDN, we figured out that back then CDN was an enterprise play only, and smaller startups could not afford it. They were forced to go annual contract and $500 minimum a month. So we just made it self-service, so if you look at the market and figure out a way on how can you, solve pain points or make something accessible for people that did not have access to it, then things will grow. And this, we had like some really nice rocket ship hockey stick growth once we started this new brand, which was MaxCDN, which was a self-serve CDN, and it's went great.
Awesome. And you went to US and then you came back to Europe, but you didn't come back to Germany, right? I mean, what made you sell MaxCDN? And if you're okay to share about the commercials and what really happened that you thought about coming back.
Sure. So when we sold MaxCDN, as you mentioned before, I had like this big wake up moment, which was my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, and knock on wood, today she's doing great. But this was a big wake up moment, and I envisioned me laying on my deathbed, looking back at my life, thinking, did I really do what I was supposed to do? Did I have the impact that I want to have? And it's like a big wake up moment. And this also led me to, talking to my partners on leaning into selling MaxCDN, because I wanted to do something that is more in line with what I'm passionate about and having more impact. And so after the sale, my wife, also my mother died a little before that, died from cancer. And my wife was very close with my mom, and it's really tough for her. And she wanted to move back to Germany. So our daughter grows up with family. So there's more connection. And I said, honey, I love you, but I can't go back to German weather after 8 years of sunny California. So we ended up moving to the south of Turkey, which is the same climate as Los Angeles. My wife is Turkish parent, so this is why we ended up here, and we're very happy here. Yeah.
Interesting. And you have a lot of other startups which you operate, like LTVplus or Taskdrive, 50 SaaS and other companies. How much of your time is spent on other companies? Because managing happiness is also one of your startups. But how is it possible for a bootstrapper to manage so many business on the side? If you can help the listeners understand, what does it take to operate?
Yeah, sure. So there's a book called Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business, which lays out the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's like something I wish I would have had earlier in my career. And by implementing these systems into the business, it becomes very easy, not very easy, but much easier to manage a business without being super present. And the other key thing is I have business partners or GMs that are running these businesses. So I'm just more of like an advisor, and I help with big partnerships or kind of strategy and things like this, but I'm not in the day-to-day of any of these businesses. So there's as I mentioned, LTVplus and Taskdrive, and the latest one is speakonpodcasts.com, where we help people to get featured on podcasts. Nice. Which we launched with the former GM of Taskdrive. He was very passionate about this, so we forked this out into a new business, and now I'm business partners with him in this business. Before he was just a GM at Taskdrive, and we have a new GM on Taskdrive. So that's like the secret for me to being able to running multiple businesses.
Got it. And do you set any OKRs or any
well, yeah, everything's absolutely. So It's also part of EOS is so you have a clear 90-day goals. You define rocks, like the big things you want to work on, and then we have so these are our 90-day rocks, and then we have KPIs for each department, for each person, and yeah, everything is planned and measured, very structured in German. And we have like a level 10 meeting, which is once a week. The leadership team gets together, and we go through a standardized process of a meeting, which is called a level 10 meeting. Usually, I used to hate meetings, but with level 10 meetings at the end, yeah, first of all, the structure is amazing, and at the end you ask from 0 to 10, how would you rate this meeting? And if it's below an 8, you have to tell the group why it's below an 8, and this way you can always fix stuff to actually make it worth your time. And then like 6 people, 8 people sitting together, wasting each 1 hour, it has to be efficient. And with the system, yeah. So everybody who's running a business or thinks about starting a business, do yourself a favor and read Traction. It's really amazing. And there's 2 books. One is Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business by Gino Wickman. This is the one you want to read. You do not want to, I mean, the other one's also good, but it has nothing to do with this. It's by the founder of DuckDuckGo. It's also called Traction. Just like, once I actually asked my business partner to read the book Traction, and 2 weeks later when we had our meeting, I said, like, did you read Traction? He's like, yes. He said, what did you think? And he started talking. I was like, dude, what did you smoke? Like, what are you talking about? And I realized there was another book called Traction. But yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you pointed out you don't like meetings, but any thoughts on about meetings, how big it should be and how small? I've had Gayaka Kawasaki on the podcast before who had a very famous saying that about meetings, it should be not more than 10 slides and should be covered in 30 minutes. But this is about the pitch rounds where people are pitching to VCs. But in terms of meetings, what happens in corporate structures or in startups is people end up doing a lot of meetings, and you find out it's more like a manager schedule, not like a maker schedule, especially for operators like you. But what do you think? How can somebody make a good use of meeting?
So let me walk you through the level 10 meeting structures. Like it's a standardized, so you can use a Google Doc, and you have like this standardized agenda, and then you just like always copy the agenda up from each meeting. You copy the agenda below, so you also have like nice meeting notes. First, you go through around the room, good news. Everybody gives some good news, so kind of to lighten the mood. Then you go to the reporting piece where you go through your KPIs and you see like, how are we doing? Like broken down by week, you look at the KPIs. How did we do last week? And if there's something off, let's say sales numbers are low, lead numbers are low, whatever, you put it into a section further down in the meeting, which is the IDS, Identify, Discuss, Solve section. Then you put this there. Then you go further down, you go through the to-do section, and to-dos are usually items that are resulting from last week's IDS session, from the IDS part. And that's another cool way of holding people accountable, so I say, okay, I'm gonna do X, Y, Z. And then it's like in this document, next week, you're gonna see it again. There's no escaping, you gotta do it, right? So it's a cool way of holding people accountable. Then in the IDS section, you go through the things that came up on the reporting. And by the way, another thing that we do, it's not part of ES, but it works phenomenally. We have an error log where we add all the errors that we had, customer complaints, internal mess ups, whatever. So we can discuss them in these meetings and see which processes do we have to change so they will not come up again. So it's kind of like a self-healing machine that we always kind of fix ourselves. And so in the IDS section, we talk about these things, and also it's an amazing place for, let's say you see something that's going wrong throughout the week. You see something that, Steven's doing something that should be done differently, but it's not super problematic. It's just like something, okay, this could be done better. Then you don't interrupt them in his workflow. You just put it into the IDS section, and then you also don't forget it. And next week you come to this section, and you go over it. Then you have the cascading messages. Figure out, like, is there something that resulting from this meeting that you have to share with customers, employees, other departments, whatever. And then you rate the meeting from 0 to 10, as I mentioned before. And kind of having a structure like this, meeting always happens. You block 90 minutes. It doesn't have to be full 90 minutes, but you block 90 minutes, and it has to be, ideally done these 90 minutes. And it's at the same time during in the week, and you have to be there your only excuse is you're sick or you're on vacation, but aside from this, you have to be there. And with the structures, this works really well. And you can also do this for different departments. So you have like one manager meeting, you have like a marketing sales meeting, and etc. And this works really well.
Interesting. I'm sure.
So it's an important thing that I forgot. Also, the rocks that I mentioned before, in the reporting piece, you also go over the rocks. You know, let's say you have rock XYZ, and we ask them, okay, what's the status on this rock? You either say on track or not on track or problem. And if it's on track, we just move on. We don't even talk about it. You know, on track meaning you hit your deadline. And if it's not on track, you move to the IDS section. We talk about where you're stuck. You know, so it's
interesting. And you know, I'm sure listeners would understand a lot about how you've been able to, you know, run and operate so many different startups at the same time. And this also gave me an idea about how to do 90-minute meetings. And I'll surely look into reading this book. But you know, David, how can people align businesses with their mission statements? And do you think, you know, aligning your mission and vision are really important at the you know, start of the businesses? Because a lot of times people do start businesses, but 5 years down the line, they either fight with the co-founders, or you know, founders are not really happy with how things are going on. What advice would you give to listeners who are looking to, you know, align their businesses with the mission statement, so that, you know, they can run the businesses forever, or, you know, for decades from now?
Yep. So I used to think that mission, vision, and core values are complete bullshit. You don't need it. Like, you know, I'd rather work on product, you know, something you maybe need for an investor presentation, or you put it somewhere on the website and you never look at it again. But I can, you know, I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I realized that it's actually super, super important. It's actually one of the best management tools that you have, and decision-making tools and thought filters. So at MaxCDN, we first had this enterprise CDN, as I mentioned before, and then we pivoted into being focused on startups. And our mission was to make CDN as accessible as possible and as easy to use as possible. And, you know, aiming for startups. And this worked really well. And then we grew super fast and we hired lots of people, but we didn't tell anybody what we're about, which resulted that we were running into 10 different directions and nothing was moving anymore. New head of sales ran after enterprise customers. New head of engineering built this crazy data analytics platform that was amazing for 5% of our customers. And the rest was like, what do we do with this? So like nothing moved anymore. And so once we realized that this is due to a lack of clear mission and vision, like your mission and vision is the North Star of your organization, that everybody's aligned, like, okay, we want to conquer this hill and we're doing this for this person. And it doesn't mean that this can change or be adapted over time, but it's really important to have like some good at the end. So yeah, I even have this in my personal life. I have my personal mission, I have my personal vision, I have core values. It's like an amazing decision-making tool. A friend of mine started Ring, the doorbell, and he had like a very successful exit to Amazon. And I talked to him and his head of engineering and about mission and vision values. And he said, they have this floodlight that you put on the side of the house, you know, and when somebody walks past, then the floodlights go on and you can talk to them and see them like, hey, what are you doing on my property? Get lost.
Yeah.
And one of his engineers came to him and said like, hey, you have this amazing idea, since we have these floodlight things and they have a microphone, they have a light, we could program the party mode, you know, then if you turn on music, they could flash with, you know, with the music. And he could have told him like, that's a stupid idea, go back to your desk and work. And then this guy would have been discouraged and would not, you know, would probably never come with another idea. But he just said, okay, that's cool, but what does this have to do with our mission, which is to make neighborhoods safer? Nothing. You know, so you have like basically this decision filter for every decision you make in the business. Do we need this? Do we want to build this? Does it make sense to build? Yes or no? And you can kind of run this through this filter. Jack Ma from Alibaba, his mission is to make doing business easy anywhere. And he said every day, smart people from our organization come with ideas on stuff that I could build, we could integrate. And he always runs us through the filter. Does this make doing business easy anywhere? Yes, we'll consider it. No, go away, we're not doing it. He said that you lose a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out, you know, because it's also super important for you when you start a business, when you have a business, that you build something that is really solving a pain point of, you know, a group of people, like solves it really well, that you go deeper and it's not just like scratching the surface on a lot of things. So it's an absolute amazing tool. So please do yourself a favor and figure out your mission, vision, and core values and live by it. I could talk on about this topic for another half an hour, but we only have 30 some minutes, so I want to keep it shorter.
Got it. And I was looking at one of the blog posts where you talked about how family lives. Somebody who's running a business, it's very important to keep their values aligned with their family, because family is also very important. And you talk about a lot of times why marriages do fail. And I recently had Bradford from Foundry2, who's a VC who lives in US. He talked about the 90% rule, where he created a rule where the 90% of times you listen to his spouse, right? But what communication styles or what sort of mission should be aligned with your family, so that an entrepreneur can build a high quality business because he's ambitious, but at the same time he can also be with his family and have the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this has a lot to do with setting expectations and time boxing. For example, and the most important thing is that you and your wife and your kids kind of come to a conclusion, like what's okay, and you have to have a discussion about this. For example, my wife and I had something during the MaxCDN days, which was like much busier for me because I was more involved in the business, that I can come home whenever I want, Monday to Thursday, but actually no, Monday to Wednesday, but Thursday and Friday I have to be home by dinner, and or time boxing. Now I have time boxing. I have family time starting at 5 p.m. It's dedicated family time. So I play with my daughter. I have dinner with my wife. We walk the dogs, etc. Otherwise, if I'm not doing this, I'll just keep on working. And so like my calendar is like very time box. My morning routine is blocked out. My lunch is blocked out. My workout time is blocked out. Family time is blocked out. And I always use Calendly to book my appointments, which is like a software, probably everybody knows it. And this saves myself from, you tell me like, hey, let's do the podcast at 3 a.m. my time. I'd say, sure, let's do it, because something's broken in my head. I always think about work or like overriding family time or whatever. But with Calendly, it's just like kind of falls to a place where it makes sense. So, yeah. And I guess communication, setting expectations, and then spending quality time with your spouse or with your kids. When you're there with them, just be present, even though you can't spend a lot of time with them. But when you're there, put your phone away. So super complain friction point with my wife that I was always on my phone, even when I'm with them, like Slack messages, whatever, kind of like, and now we came to this and I thought like, oh, something may happen and I have to be there. So the solution that my wife and I came up with I come home, I put the phone on silent, I put it on the charging spot and it stays there. And I got a home phone just for this reason. So in case something blows up in the business, that people can call me. And this was like the thing that made it much easier.
Interesting. And I want to talk about UpCoach, which is your main hustle these days. And what made you start UpCoach, and what are you trying to build for coaches?
Mm-hmm. So with Managing Happiness, which originally was an online course that people just took by themselves. And it drove me really nuts that the completion rate was only 7% of the course. People buy the course and only 7% complete. And it was like driving me nuts, because it was not, about just like be in it for the money. Then like, yeah, these suckers bought, like whatever, what they do with it's their problem. But, my thing is like, I want them to understand this so their life improves. This is like my goal. And so I thought, okay, there has to be a better way. And I started to do group coaching. Basically running people through an 8-week curriculum, 1 week a day, 1 hour a week, we come together. And we, first to watch some videos, and then in the sessions, we kind of go through some stuff together. And this worked phenomenal. We went from a 7% to a 94% completion rate. And we saw like phenomenal results and changing people's lives. And the course Managing Happiness is, we help people to figure out their personal mission, their personal vision, their core values, their 90-day, 1-year, 10-year plan, and the habits that they need to actually achieve the stuff that they want to achieve. Because I'm a big believer that habits determine everything in your life. If you're rich, poor, successful, unsuccessful, obese or in shape, happy or unhappy, it all boils down to what habits do you cultivate in your life. And so I started building I had one of my CTO of one of my businesses asked him to build like a habit tracker for us, because before we did it in Google Docs, it was like a lot of work for me to do this in Google with all these different disjointed tools. And so we started building this app, and it grew and became more and more and more. And then I asked a friend of mine who's a very successful, well-known coach, Todd Herman is his name. He wrote the book, The Alter Ego Effect. Really good book, by the way. Like, hey man, I built this thing. Could you give me some feedback? I'm not a coach, I'm a business nerd. Just like, what do you think? And he said, that's amazing. I want to invest. I want to be part of this. Let's grow this big. And so we took this code base that we built on managing happiness. We took it out and we started UpCoach.com, which is this thingy now, which is became way more than it was initially. It's like a tool that helps a coach to run their business and scale their business without necessarily adding a lot of people. And does the CRM part for the coach, the customer success piece, facilitating one-on-one group coaching meetings. And another key thing is like accountability. It helps to hold the client accountable, because they have the habit tracker in there, and so it's like, yeah, that's what I'm focusing on the most of my time right now, which is also super in line with my personal mission, which is being a change agent who's transforming the lives of individuals and organizations so they can reach their full potential. This is just the thing that makes me the happiest when I get to do this. And first, my goal was to do this with managing happiness. But with UpCoach, I can actually have way more impact because I can have thousands of coaches helping millions of people to, better their life. So that's why I'm so excited about this project right now.
Interesting. And so it's like a marketplace for coaches, and what is the?
No, it's not a marketplace. It's just like imagine like
CRM.
a CRM. It's like a CRM type thing for coaches that helps them to deliver their coaching content better. Okay. And we're also adding chats to it in the next few weeks, and so it's like a communication tool and facilitation tool for coaches, and also the billing piece, etc. It's kind of all baked into this.
Correct. And what is the pricing for coach, and who can? And do you think anybody can be a coach without getting a certificate from Coactive or?
I don't have a certificate. So I think, if you if you have content, if you know something well, you can teach it to others. So yes, it's like kind of creating an online course. Kind of everybody can create an online course. If you have some common sense and you have the desire to help people to understand what you're doing or what you have learned, then you can coach people. So it's for coaching, training, and facilitation. And the price point is, we start with usually it's $99, but since we're just officially launching, we've been using it, and a bunch of coaches have been using it, including myself. But now we're going public, actually in 2 days we're launching, and the founder's price is $99 reduced to $39, and you get 2 admins, so 2 coaches and 30 coachees or clients. And the bigger plan is $499 reduced to $199, and you get 5 coaches and 100 coachees. So we kept it very reasonable, and we'll make it more expensive later online.
Correct. And David, do you think you should also lead your family like a business, and how do you align so many businesses and your family together? Should somebody who's been able to operate so many different things at the same time, should they also look at the family as leading a business only?
I mean, for me, this works really well because I like the structure, I like the predictability, I like to plan, for example, you plan your vacation in advance. Right. Like you plan something in your business. Before, we always went on vacation because my wife came to me flipping out that we haven't been anywhere in a very long time. Then I make a knee-jerk reaction, book something that's too expensive. All these meetings that I have scheduled for this time I have to move, and the project I'm involved in probably will go south because I'm not there, etc. And then we overpay and we can't plan out what we want to do, so it kind of sucks. So now we book it very in advance, so we have something to look forward to, or kind of like having regular meetings with your spouse where you sit down and kind of talk about things, right? Or figuring out what you actually want out of life, kind of really sitting down, figuring out what you want, or if you have issues, things. So my wife and I, we write down the stuff that annoys me about her and vice versa. And then we, everybody picks one, and then we work on this to improve this, and similar in the business, because when you sit down in a solution-oriented manner, then you can actually solve stuff versus like normally in relationships, you have a fight. You just want to win the argument. You really want to fix it, but if you just like have a dedicated time where you talk about these issues, then you're not rallied up, you're not emotional, and you can kind of like actually sit down and lose solution-oriented manner. Like in the business, let's say you're my chief revenue officer and you don't bring in the numbers, I would not yell at you, I'd not be upset. I'd be like, okay, man, what's the problem? Is marketing not giving you enough leads? You need more ad spends, blah, what can we do to fix this, And then you can actually massively improve your relationship and kind of remove the bugs that you have, right?
Right, correct. And I quickly want to do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
I mean, I mentioned a few times before, Traction, I think is like by far my favorite business. Okay. Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business by Gino Wickman. Please read it.
Yeah, we'll put the correct book link. And if you could go back in time when you started working on your business, or even UpCoach for a matter, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
Definitely having like a clear mission and vision. As I told you the story before, I think this is like the biggest thing. Like reading Traction before, if we would have read this before MaxCDN, we figured all this stuff out ourselves, but with a lot of blood, sweat, and tear and time. And I think we would have probably 10x the business if we would have had this plan. So yeah, definitely figure out my mission and vision earlier.
I'm going to reread Traction after this podcast. And what's your favorite online tools? Example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom.
Zoom is still amazing, but it kind of, with this surge of COVID, I think they messed it up a little bit. I love G Suite, of course. I'm not really sure if I could say I have a real favorite tool. No, sorry. I can't really give you, it's just like the usual. And I'm also pretty boring. I used to be able to do a bunch of stuff like, administrate service, etc. Use Photoshop, but I can only use Zoom, email, and that's pretty much it. I became an idiot, just like, and spreadsheets. Yeah, actually, I look at a lot of spreadsheets, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think Zoom and G Suite are some of the favorite products.
Let's say Google Sheets. Google Sheets is my favorite one because it's actually pretty cool what you can do with it. Pull stuff together from different sheets and etc. It's pretty amazing tool.
Correct. We'll put that in the show notes. So David, what is the best way people can know about UpCoach and know more about you?
So UpCoach, you can go to upcoach.com and check it out. And I have a personal website, which is davidhenzel.com, but I'm not really active. I don't blog on it anymore. We have another thing is howwesolve.com, which is a podcast where we interview smart individuals who have solved hard business problems, and they break it down to like a step-by-step fashion so you can implement it as well. So you don't have to do the same mistakes. Reaching me, you can reach me either at dh@upcoach.com, or you can also hit me up on the usual social networks like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. I like people. Hit me up if I can help somehow. Happy to chat.
All right, we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us. I really enjoyed speaking to you.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me on.